finally spoke out publicly about the bong photo seen around the world. Here's what he told Matt Lauer on the Today Show.
We're just celebrating, honestly. We're just a small group, and we were just sitting around celebrating.
You know, I have to ask you, were you smoking pot?
It was a bad mistake. I mean, we all know what you and I are talking about. It's a stupid mistake, bad judgment.
Stupid mistake and bad judgment. What's wrong with smoking pot? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my God.
Should marijuana be legalized? We'll debate the pros and cons right now. In the anti-legalization camp is actor Stephen Baldwin. And on the pro side is Congressman from Texas, Ron Paul. He was a presidential candidate, and Paul has sponsored hemp-related legislation. Gentlemen, round one. Okay, what's your reaction to the hoo-ha over the Phelps photo? Ron?
Oh, I'm sorry, over the what?
Over the photo, the Michael Phelps photo. What was your reaction to all of that? What happened with Michael Phelps? I mean, he basically lost a lot of his endorsements.
On Phelps, well, the whole thing, I think, is a mess. It's outrageous. I think we're getting carried away with the whole war on drugs. That's how silly the whole thing gets.
Ron Paul is right, okay? The war on drugs is very silly. I mean, you had the drug war for like 30 fucking years, and y'all still failed. People are still out here smoking weed, doing all the drugs and all the bullshit that they wanted to do. So why in the fuck would you even still enforce the war on drugs, man? The fuck out of here with that bullshit.
Drugs are very dangerous, but there's a lot of things that's very dangerous. The question is who should regulate danger? Should we assume responsibility for ourselves, or should the government take care of us? And I don't believe in the nanny state. If you do have regulations and laws, they should be at the state level, not at the federal level. We didn't even have a federal law up until 1937, and here we are. We have spent hundreds of billions of dollars in a very unsuccessful attempt to regulate drugs, and you have all these weird examples. That's one example you mentioned, but what about a sick person dying with cancer, goes out and uses marijuana when it was legalized in a particular state like California, and the feds come in and arrest him? I mean, there's so much violation there of common decency and the Constitution, and it makes no sense. The drug war is a total failure, and the federal drug war ought to be revisited and for the most part gotten rid of.
Yes, Ron Paul is absolutely right. You mean to fucking tell me a sick person that have to smoke weed, you know what I'm saying, just to feel better, you're gonna motherfucking arrest them for that? Make it the fuck out of here with that, man. You guys suck. Fuck you, Steven. You's a bitch. You shouldn't even speak right now. Seriously, you should not even fucking speak right now.
Okay, Stephen Baldwin, hi. You're against legalizing marijuana. Why?
Well, it's a little bit ironic. I could see why Jimmy wanted to rush out of there so quickly. Here you're looking at an actor that has starred in two very popular marijuana films, Half-Baked and Biodome. And, here I am bringing a faith-based conservative perspective to this issue. And, obviously, Joy, there's a lot of common sense that needs to be included in this conversation. It's a very simple reality. Marijuana leads to doing worse things. That's just a fact. I don't care what anybody says, what the debate is. When you smoke marijuana at a young age, it'll usually lead to alcohol abuse and harder drugs.
That is complete bullshit, Steven. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why. I've been smoking weed since I was fucking 17 years old. I haven't gotten to no fucking harder drugs, than any cocaine or meth or any of that bullshit. I didn't do that. So your statement right there is bullshit. So shut the fuck up.
So right there, I mean, that's one reason why it should not be legalized.
We've heard that for years, that it's a gateway drug. What do you say to that, Congressman Paul?
Well, I think that's silly. Probably the most addictive drug in the country, in the world, is nicotine.
Ron Paul, you is absolutely right. Nicotine is one of the hardest drugs in America. I mean, it's harder than fucking heroin. And like people trying to quit and they can't quit. I mean, people try 6-7 times, cold turkey, still haven't quit. I smoke cigarettes, and I'm telling you, from personal experience, it's hard to quit. So that bullshit about marijuana, talk about, it's a gateway drug, it's hard to quit, all that bullshit. Nah, you're not going to push that bullshit on me, Steven. Try somebody else that's more gullible than that shit.
And nobody talks about nicotine being a gateway drug, so there's no sense to that. And besides, it's not nearly as addictive as alcohol. So if you're a consistent person and you think the government should be regulating personal behavior, you have to be for prohibition of alcohol. And when you look back and throughout history and what happened to that, that was a total disaster. It created the Al Capones. And right now today, there's so much violence today, not because people use drugs, but because they're illegal. That's why, you know, the people who benefit the most by all these laws, these are the drug cartels.
Ron Paul, you was right again. Now, if it wasn't for drugs being illegal in the first place, we wouldn't have so much crimes. We wouldn't have people robbing people, shooting people, drug deals going bad, motherfuckers going to jail over bullshit, you know, just because someone has like a bag of marijuana. You're supposed to go to jail and serve 6 to 7 months, possibly a year or two, depending on what drug it is and how much higher it is. Come on, man. You got to come off better than that.
They lobbied to keep these laws in place because they can't exist without them. You don't have the Al Capones now because you don't have prohibition of alcohol. Prohibition is what is bad. And this does not mean we endorse personal behavior that is not beneficial. It just means who regulates personal behavior. And it shouldn't be the state. There's no benefits to it. It's just like regulating church behavior or religious behavior of any sort. So I see no purpose in doing this.
You're right, Ron. You are so right. Now what, Steven, you fucking bitch-ass nigga? What the fuck you got to say to that shit?
Okay, Stephen, we'll get back to you when we return, okay? More Baldwin versus Paul. Okay, we're back. Stephen, let me ask you a question. Congressman Paul brought up the whole idea of medical marijuana. What is your response to that? People have glaucoma, they're nauseous from anti-cancer drugs. What do you say to that?
Well, again, you know, there is, you know, not a whole lot of research to back up the fact that there aren't alternatives even to that. There's lots of pain-relieving practices that people can study. So I must say that, to be honest with you, Joy, when in fact there are people for those reasons that do have success with it, then if prescribed under a controlled situation, then yes, obviously that makes a lot of sense.
So, Stephen, if you say that make a lot of sense, then what can be more sensible than legalizing all the drugs? That way, you know, you will never have no drug dealers on the street selling that shit in the first place. There won't be no crime. Ain't no people killing each other over drugs. Please, now tell me, what is more sensible than that shit, since you want to talk sensible?
If we legalize marijuana, there's no question that the number of deaths related to people being impaired under the influence of marijuana is going to increase.
How do you mean number of deaths due to marijuana? Look at the fucking number of deaths due to drinking alcohol. People drinking and driving. DUI, you dumb fuck. Let's get this shit right before you start talking shit about marijuana.
The question is, just to be able to tax it, is it worth it? That's the question.
Rob, what do you say to that?
Well, I understand there's a few people who smoke marijuana already. And how many times have you seen somebody arrested for driving under the influence of marijuana?
I never heard of it either. What a coincidence, Ron. What a coincidence.
I mean, I've never even heard of it. Driving under the influence of alcohol, that is dangerous. But people shouldn't do that, and they should be responsible. But you can't get more people smoking marijuana. It's just that what is so bad is the war on marijuana, putting people in prison. They can be caught using drugs for the third time, never committing a violent act, and putting them in prison for life. And yet rapists and murderers can get out. And
Ron is so right again. So you mean to fucking tell me, Steven, that you rather arrest people that got weed on them or that's, you know, under the influence of marijuana driving and shit? You rather put them in jail and let murderers and rapists and fucking child molesters come out? And what would you do if a child molester was to come in your fucking house, nigga, and motherfucking child molest your children? Then what the fuck you got to say? You gonna say, well, huh, that's all right. You know, they may, you know, molest my children, but at the same time, you know, we arrested people that do drugs. We're making America a very great place. Get the fuck out of here. Oh my goodness, man.
if you think of all that expenses, you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars that get spent on this, and people usually who get sent to prison for nonviolent drug use come out as violent criminals. So it makes no sense at all to pursue this method because marijuana is not going to increase car accidents. Let me tell you, that is not the case.
I would think that it's hard to detect if you're high on marijuana when you're pulled over by the police. There's no breathalyzer test. So how would we know what effect it has?
Well,
but
that's
Go ahead, Ron.
Go ahead, Mr. Paul. Go ahead, Ron.
well, that's a possibility, but even under today's circumstances, nobody gets arrested for it. And the alcohol is the real culprit and the real problem. And yet we have people in Washington, D.C. who drink a lot of alcohol, let me tell you, because of political reasons. They're scared to death to vote to legalize the growing of hemp. Hemp has nothing to do with smoking marijuana. And because of this obsession on the drug war, we can't grow hemp in this country. We send the hemp growing up to Canada, then we buy the products that we make from hemp. So we export our jobs to Canada. Hemp is a good product that we prohibit from being used, and it was legal up until even after World War II. We were allowed to raise hemp in this country. This is how hysterical this war on drugs has gotten. So as soon as we come to this realization, someday, actually, I'm optimistic about this. I think this country is going to wake up like they did in the 30s and say, hey, you know, prohibition didn't work. Alcohol's a horror. It's made things worse. It's caused a lot of crime and a lot of violence. It's about time we just do this. Get rid of the prohibition. Let the regulation go back to the state. Regulate it like alcohol. And with the real regulation come from the individual and also from the family and the parents and the community. That's what prevents drug use, not some federal thug coming in with guns and arresting some kid and throwing him in prison for life. That makes no sense whatsoever.
And Ron Paul just hit the button right there. He is absolutely right. You know, a federal thug coming into your house, arresting you over some bullshit about marijuana, it's not going to work. It's not. Okay, so I think they should throw that shit away too, you know what I mean? And then at the same time, I mean, you know, this drug war, it's failed, man. And trust me, Ron, I already opened my eyes, okay? I knew this shit, you know, from a long time ago that, you know, the drug war wasn't going to work. People still was going to do it. And you was absolutely right. It's all, it all, you know, boils down to the individual. So at the end of the day, if that person want to go do that drug or do anything in their life, they're going to do it. Who's going to stop them? So, I mean, you know, I think it's fucked up that the government would try to stop a person from doing something, because let me tell you, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to just tell everybody this in your face. Okay, the government is really doing a bad job doing that, because I can go down the street and buy weed if I want to. I can go buy alcohol if I wanted to. Even before I turned 21, I could even buy alcohol, liquor, whatever. So the government and, you know, the police and all that, you know, y'all doing a terrible job. So drop the, you know, bullshit act, please.
Are you saying that there are a lot of alcoholics in Congress? Is that what I heard you say?
No, I didn't say that. I said there's a lot of. I said there's a lot of people in Congress who drink a lot of alcohol.
Let me ask you something.
And they won't vote to legalize
have a question.
hemp. They won't even let us write. They won't even let us raise hemp because they're afraid of the political consequence.
Is there any drug you would not legalize?
I have a question.
Ron, I just want one more question to Congressman. Is there any drug you would not? Do you want to legalize all drugs, heroin included?
Well, I want to go back to a previous time prior to 1937 when the states did the regulating. And I don't advocate giving marijuana to 10-year-olds walking in the store, but at 10, you know, the kids now can get more marijuana with all these laws easier than they can get alcohol. So the states have every right to regulate and legalize and allow people to use these things.
We're running out of time. Stephen, I'm going to give you the last word before we go.
I'm just curious, Joy, do you think that there's a lot of marijuana smoking Ron Paul supporters? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, have you ever smoked a joint, Ron? Congressman Paul, have you ever smoked a joint?
You know, this is the truth, and most people believe what I say. I have never seen anybody smoke marijuana, and I have never been in the same room with it.
Okay, thank you very much, you guys. Go to CNN.com.
To me, it's an issue of freedom of choice.
All right, first off, I want to say this before I even, you know, go talk about, you know, the final opinion that I feel about this whole entire thing and about the upcoming election. First off, Stephen Baldwin and, you know, the lady that was talking shit, you know what I'm saying? I think they really need to shut the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? They need to stop shitting on Ron Paul and actually listen to Ron Paul with some common sense, you know, if they can use their fucking brains just for a minute and actually understand about what the fuck he is talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm so with Ron Paul. They need to legalize the drug. They need to do it. I think it's a waste of time, even still trying to fight the drug war. And, It's a waste of time personally. So, and I know actually y'all agree with me, you know what I'm saying? YouTubers and Facebookers. So, you know, seriously. So, at the end of the day, you know, my final opinion is that drugs should be legalized. Ron Paul, I'm voting for you. You know what I'm saying? You're the man, man, and you speak the truth, man. Legalize drugs, man. Vote for Ron Paul. 2012 election. Deuces.